Hi, this is Andrew, and we're going to be reading Mike Mulligan and his steam shovel. Mike Mulligan had a steam shovel, a beautiful red steam shovel named Marianne. He was very proud of Marianne. He always said that she could dig as much in a day as 100 men could dig in a week, but he had never been quite sure that this was true. Mike Mulligan and Marianne had been digging together for years and years. He took such good care of Marianne, she never grew old. It was Mike Mulligan and Marianne and some others who dug the great canals for the big boats to sail through. It was Mike Mulligan and Marianne and some others who cut through the high mountains so that trains could go through. It was Mike and Marianne and some others who lowered the hills and straightened the curves to make the long highways for the automobiles. It was Mike and Marianne and some others who smoothed out the ground and filled in the holes to make the landing fields for airplanes. Mike and Marianne and some others dug the deep holes for the cellars of the tall skyscrapers in the big cities. When people used to stop and watch them, Mike and Marianne used to dig a little faster and a little better. The more people stopped, the faster and better they dug. Some days they would keep as many as 37 trucks busy taking away the dirt they had dug. Then along came the new gasoline shovels and the new electric shovels and the new diesel motor shovels and took all the jobs away from the steam shovels. Mike and Marianne were very sad. All the other steam shovels were being sold for junk or left out in old gravel pits to rust and fall apart. Mike loved Marianne. He couldn't do that to her. He had taken such good care of her that she could still dig as much in a day as 100 men. At least he thought she could, but he wasn't quite sure. Everywhere they went, the new gas shovels and the new electric shovels and the new diesel motor shovels had all the jobs. No one wanted Mike and Marianne anymore. But then one day, Mike read in a paper that the town of Popperville was going to build a new town hall. "We're going to dig the cellar of that town hall," said Mike to Marianne, and off they started. They left the canals, the railroads, the highways, and the airports, and the big cities where no one wanted them anymore and went out to the country. They crawled along slowly up the hills and down the hills till they came to the little town of Popperville. When they got there, they found that the selectmen were just deciding who should dig the cellar for the new town hall. Mike spoke to Henry B. Swap, one of the selectmen. "I heard that you're going to build a new town hall. Marianne and I will dig the cellar for you in just one day." "What?" said Henry. "Dig a cellar in a day? It would take 100 men at least a week to dig the cellar for our new town hall." "Sure," said Mike, "but Marianne can dig as much in a day as 100 men can dig in a week." Though he had never quite been sure this was true. Then he added, "If we can't do it, you won't have to pay." Henry thought about this. He thought it would be an easy way to get part of the cellar dug for nothing, so he smiled in a rather mean way and gave the job of digging the cellar to Mike and Marianne. They started early the next morning, just as the sun was coming up. Soon a little boy came along. There he is. "Do you think you'll finish by sundown?" he said to Mike Mulligan. "Sure," said Mike, "if you stay and watch us. We always work faster and better when someone is watching us." So the little boy stayed to watch. Then Mrs. McGillicuddy, Henry B. Swap, and the town constable came over to see what was happening, and they stayed to watch. Mike Mulligan and Marianne dug a little faster and a little better. This gave the little boy a good idea. He ran off and told the postman with the morning mail, the telegraph boy on his bicycle, the milkman with his cart and horse, the doctor on his way home, and the farmer and his family coming into town for the day, and they all stopped and stayed to watch. That made Mike and Marianne dig a little faster and a little better. They finished the first corner neat and square, but the sun was getting higher. Clang, clang came the fire department. They had seen some smoke and thought there was a fire. Then the little boy said, "Why don't you stay and watch?" So the fire department of Popperville stayed to watch Mike and Mary Ann. When they heard the fire engine, the children in the school across the street couldn't keep their eyes on their lessons. The teacher called a long recess, and the whole school came out to watch. That made Mike and Mary Ann dig still faster and still better. They finished the second corner neat and square, but the sun was right up in the top of the sky. Now the girl who answers the telephone called up the next towns of Bangerville and Bopperville and Kipperville and Copperville and told them what was happening in Popperville. All the people came over to see if Mike Mulligan and his steam shovel could dig the cellar in just one day. The more people came, the faster Mike and Mary Ann dug. But they would have to hurry. They were only halfway through and the sun was beginning to go down. They finished the third corner neat and square. Never had Mike and Mary Ann had so many people watch them, and they never dug so fast and so well, and never had the sun seem to go down so fast. Dirt was flying everywhere, and the smoke and steam was so thick that the people could hardly see anything. But listen. Bing, bang, crash, slam, louder and louder, faster and faster. Then suddenly it was quiet. Slowly the dirt settled, then smoke and steam cleared away, and there was the cellar all finished. 4 corners, neat and square, 4 walls, straight down, and Mike Mulligan and Mary Ann at the bottom, and the sun was just going down behind the hill. Hooray, shouted the people. Hooray for Mike Mulligan and his steam shovel. They've dug the cellar in just one day. Suddenly the little boy said, "How are they going to get out?" "That's right," said Mrs. McGillicuddy. "How is he going to get his steam shovel out?" Henry B. Swap did not answer, but he smiled in a rather mean way. Then everybody said, "How are they going to get out?" "Hi, Mike Mulligan. How are you going to get your steam shovel out?" Mike looked around at the 4 square walls and 4 square corners, and he said, "We've dug so fast and we've dug so well that we've forgotten to leave a way out." Nothing like this had ever happened to Mike and Mary Ann before, and they didn't know what to do. Nothing like this had ever happened before in Popperville. Everybody started talking at once, and everybody had a different idea, and everybody thought that his idea was the best. They talked and talked, and they argued and they fought till they were worn out, and still no one knew what to do. Then Henry B. Swap said, "The job isn't finished because Mary Ann isn't out of the cellar, so Mike Mulligan won't get paid." And he smiled again in a rather mean way. But now the little boy, who had been keeping very quiet, had another good idea. He said, "Why couldn't we leave Mary Ann in the cellar and build a new town hall above her? Let her be the furnace for the new town hall. And let Mike Mulligan be the janitor. Then you wouldn't have to buy a new furnace, and we could pay Mike Mulligan for digging the cellar in just one day." "Why not?" said Henry B. Swap, and smiled in a way that was not quite so mean. "Why not?" said Mrs. McGillicuddy. "Why not?" said the town constable. "Why not?" said all the people. So they found a ladder and climbed down into the cellar to ask Mike Mulligan and Mary Ann. "Why not?" said Mike Mulligan. So it was decided, and everybody was happy. They built the new town hall right over Mike Mulligan and Mary Ann. It was finished before winter. Every day the little boy goes over to see Mike Mulligan and Mary Ann, and Miss McGillicuddy takes him nice hot apple pies. As for Henry B. Swap, he spends most of his time in the cellar of the new town hall listening to the stories that Mike Mulligan has to tell and smiling in a way that isn't mean at all. Now when you go to Popperville, be sure to go down into the cellar of the new town hall. There they'll be Mike Mulligan and Mary Ann, Mike in his rocking chair, smoking his pipe, and Mary Ann beside him warming up the meetings in the new town hall.